On the pasuk Al Tira Avram, Hashem says, "Do not be afraid, Avram. Anoichi Mogen Lech, I am protecting you. Schorcha harbe miyoid, you have lots of reward." Rashi explains that Avram was concerned, Avram was afraid, since he had the miracle performed for him, where he was able to kill the kings, and such a tremendous miracle happened. Maybe he already got all of the reward for all of his righteousness. So Hashem says to him, Al tir Avram, do not be afraid, Avram. And this that you're afraid about receiving reward, this is what the pasuk says, Schorcha harbe miyoid, you have lots of reward. The Rebbe asks that seemingly it's not understood. We know that the avodah of Avraham Avinu was not for getting any sort of reward. Rather, it was completely lishma. To use the wording of the Rambam, when he discusses the special qualities of an Oved Me'ava, of one who serves Hashem just purely out of love, which is someone that is oiseg b'Torah v'mitzvahs, involved in Torah mitzvahs, loy mipnei davar b'olam, not for anything in the world, not for getting any benefit. He's only doing the emes mipnei sho emes. He's only doing the truth because it is the truth. Says the Rambam that zuhi ma'ila g'doila ma'oi. This is a tremendously high level, a great quality, and this is the ma'ila of Avraham Avinu, who shaloi avad ela me'ava, who just served Hashem purely out of love of Hashem. How can we then possibly say regarding Avraham Avinu, who's only serving Hashem out of love, that he is concerned and he is afraid that he's not going to be getting reward, to the extent that Hashem has to promise him and say, Al tira, don't be afraid, schorcha harbe miyoid, you're going to get lots of reward. Says the Rebbe, seemingly we would be able to answer that even though it's true that Avraham Avinu's avodah was completely and only lishma, and he didn't think at all about reward for his avodah, not even the reward of olam haba, nevertheless, if Avraham Avinu would know that he's not getting reward, that may have been an indication for him that his avodah is not being done properly. The Rebbe says, based on this sort of logic, we could explain also the wording of the Rambam in regards to an oved me'ava, someone that serves out of love. The Rambam says, Oisa emes mepnei sho emes, he's only doing the truth because it's the truth. And then the Rambam says, V'soif ha'toiva lavei beglala, and ultimately all the good and the benefit will come as a result of it. What's the Rambam saying with these words? He's not only coming to say that a person that serves out of love will also be getting reward, even though he's not doing it for the reward, because that's obvious. Why would the Rambam have to say this? And furthermore, what's this emphasis that soif ha'toiva lavei beglala, that eventually all the good is going to become because of it? So the Rebbe says, based on the logic before, we could say that this is a siman. This will be a sign for a person who's truly serving me'ava. He's doing it only because of the emes. The true sign would be is that soif ha'toiva lavei beglala, that eventually he is fully rewarded. That's the best sign that he was in truth doing all the avodah properly. So maybe this is what Avraham Avinu was concerned about. In other words, whether his avodah is proper. That's what the schar would be an indication. And therefore, when Avraham Avinu sees that he gets reward in this world, Avraham is concerned that perhaps he's not going to get the ultimate reward. The ultimate reward he's not going to get, which then may seem as if there is some sort of chisar, something lacking in his avodah, and that's why Hashem has to promise him not to worry. Says the Rebbe, however, it's a doiche gadol. It's very difficult to say that this is the pshat of what's happening in our pasuk, because if in fact Avraham's concern was not because of the reward on its own, but rather as an indication of whether his avodas Hashem is proper, then when Hashem is saying Al Tira Avram, that don't be afraid, what Hashem should have mainly emphasized is the idea that his avodah is b'shleimus. He shouldn't be concerned because yes, your avodah is proper, something like that. Not so much focusing on the reward aspect. From the fact that the pasuk says, "Do not be afraid," because schorcha harbe miyoid. Don't be afraid. Your reward is very much, and it doesn't even mention anything about his avodah itself. That seems to be a clear indication that the reward over here is not only as a sign and an indication regarding his avodah, but somehow that there is an inyan, some sort of purpose in the reward in and of itself. And if that's the case, we're back to square one to the question, why is Avram Avinu, who's serving out of Ava, suddenly concerned about reward? Says the Rebbe, we're going to understand this by first prefacing an explanation in a story that seems to be, at first glance, a strange story, a story with lots of questions, in the Zohar and our Parsha, in connection to this pasuk of Schorcha Harbe Miyoid. The Zohar there is explaining that one who's learning Torah, is involved in Torah, is given long life in Olam Haba, given richness and honor in this world, and in connection to this, and in continuation to this, the Zohar says the following story. Rab Abba once made the following declaration, announcement. Anyone that wants to have long life in the world to come, anyone that wants to have richness and someone that wants to have long life in the world to come should come and learn Torah. So a certain individual, a Ravok Echad, a certain bachelor came and said that I would like to toil in Torah so that I can become rich. So Rab Abba agrees. Rab Abba asked this individual, what's your name? He responds, his name is Yosi. And Rab Abba now said to his Talmidim, they should all be referring to him as Rabbi Yosi, the master of richness and honor. Now, when some time passed, Rabbi Yosi comes to this Rab Abba and asks, where's my richness? So Rab Abba says, Shema Mina, this proves that this person the whole time was not doing it l'shem shamayim. And in fact, as the Mefarshim explained, this will be understood from the continuation of the Zohar as well, that Rabbi Abba wanted to daven that this Talmud should be punished because he was being involved in Torah Shaloi L'Shma. So when Rabbi Abba says that Shema Mina, that he's not doing it L'Shem Shamayim, he immediately hears a voice, a heavenly voice that says, don't punish him. The Gavra Rabba Leheve, because he is going to be a Gavra Rabba, a great person. So Rabbi Abba turns to Rabbi Yosi and says he should continue learning, and I will give you richness, I'll make sure you get your wealth. The Zohar continues with the story and says that a certain individual, rich man, came to Rabbi Abba. This was a man that was not zoicha to learn Torah. And he asks Rabbi Abba, he would like someone to learn Torah in his merit, and he will give this person richness, he'll make this person wealthy. So Rabbi Abba says to Rabbi Yosi, you learn Torah, and this rich man will give you wealth. The Zohar then continues that he gave Rabbi Yosi a cup made of a special type of gold, paz, a special type of gold, and Rabbi Yosi sat and toiled in Torah, and this individual gave him wealth. Sometime later, once Rabbi Yosi really understood and appreciated the preciousness of Torah, he started crying why he had exchanged the schus of Torah for wealth. When Reb Abba, the teacher, hears this, he says, Hashta Shema Mina, now we could actually see that he's really doing it l'shem shamayim. And he calls this rich person back, and he says, take your wealth and give it to the poor people, give it to the Yesomim, to the orphans, and to the poor people. And I will, Reb Abba is telling him, I will give you an extra portion in Torah. In other words, I'll make sure you have a certain schus in the Torah as well. And Rabbi Yosi actually returned this kois, this cup of paz, of gold, he returned to this rich man. And the Zohar concludes by saying that up until today, we refer to him as Rabbi Yosi ben Pazi because of this kois of paz, because of this kois of this special gold. Says the Rebbe, within this story, there seems to be quite a number of questions. And to mention a few. Number one, why does Rabbi Abba want to punish Rabbi Yosi for the fact that he's learning Torah Shaloi L'Shma? We know there's a clear halacha, la'olam. A person should always be involved in Torah and mitzvahs, even if it's going to be Shaloi L'Shma, because it should be Torah Shaloi L'Shma, from the Shaloi L'Shma, eventually he will come to learn it L'Shma. The question is even greater. Rabbi Abba himself is the one that made the announcement. Who is the one that wants richness should come and learn Torah? And Rabbi Yosi, as we saw in the story, right from the outset, came to learn Torah, and he said, Kedei, in order that I should become rich. And Rabbi Abba even said to his Talmidim, they should call him the master of richness and honor. So what changed over here suddenly, when he came to ask Rabbi Abba, where is my money, where is my wealth? The Reb Abba now wants to punish him to such an extent, even an Oynish Misa. Next question, says the Rebbe. From the fact that Reb Abba told this person that from now on, after Rabbi Yossi started learning Torah Lishma, now he says from now on, don't give him any wealth anymore, because right now he wants to learn Torah Lishma. But not only that, Rabbi Yossi actually returns this kois, this cup of paz, which he had gotten immediately when this deal was made. It seems to be implying that he wanted to sort of retroactively nullify this whole agreement, even as far as the schuz, the merit of the Torah that he has already learned. He wants to give it all back. He wants all his chusim back and take it away from the rich man. That's what it seems like. So the question then is, the schus of Torah that he had already learned was already given over, was already acquired by the Ashir. This seems to be not possible to be able to take back. What's this point of giving back the cup? And finally the Rebbe says, the ending of the Zohar, after it says that Rabbi Yossi regrets the way he was learning till now, and we say that up until today we call him Rabbi Yossi ben Pazi, seemingly that's supposed to be bringing out the greatness of Rabbi Yossi, the quality of Rabbi Yossi. But it would seem to be that on the contrary, if anything, it seems to be reminding us of the fact that he learned Shaloi Lishma. He's learning it because of the Paz, because of this kosa, the Paz, because of this cup of Paz, because of this cup of gold. Furthermore, we know there's a halacha that you're not allowed to remind the Baal Tshuva about the way he had acted originally. And here, we seem to be putting it in his face the whole time. The Rebbe says, in addition to these general questions, there are a number of diyukim in the story. And the Rebbe says, number one, the Baskoil says, Gavra Rabba Lehevi, he's going to be a great man. And now that's somehow supposed to be some sort of reason why not to punish him. But the Rebbe asks and says, Mimonavshach, either way you look at it, there seems to be a problem. If learning Shaloi Lishma is completely usur, it's forbidden and he deserves a punishment, then how does it help that in the future he's going to be a great person? Just because someone's going to be a great person in the future, that allows you to do something that's not allowed right now? That's on the one hand. If, on the other hand, he does not deserve a punishment because, as we said, really, a person should always be involved in Torah and mitzvahs, even if it's Shaloi Lishma, then seemingly we shouldn't need the reason that he's going to be a great person. Question number two, says the Rebbe, why does the Zohar say that the person that came to Rabbi Abba was a ravok, was a bachelor? How does this make any difference to the story? So the Rebbe says, seemingly we would be able to explain Rabbi Abba's conduct and why Rabbi Abba wanted to punish him, is because Chazal are medayik, that the fact that one should be learning Torah and mitzvahs, even Shaloi Lishma, is because mitoich Shaloi Lishma ba Lishma. That means that eventually you will come to do it Lishma. In other words, what they're saying is it's not only because bottom line is action is the main thing, so at least you're learning, so who cares about the kavanah? In other words, the action of learning is going to outweigh the Shaloi Lishma. Or, to use the words of the Alter Rebbe, that we have a situation that the mitzvah was done properly. It's just that your thoughts weren't l'shem mitzvah, so at least you did a learning. But the Rebbe says it's much more than that. When Chazal are telling us to do mitzvahs, Torah mitzvahs, even Shaloi Lishma, because Shaloi Lishma ba Lishma, it's, again, not only because, bottom line, you're doing the right thing, but actually because eventually you will do it Lishma. That's the point. Based on this, maybe we could say that when Rabbi Abba saw that Rabbi Yossi is coming to demand the wealth, and with such toika, with such strength, he's demanding it, where is it? So Rabbi Abba now thinks that from this kind of Shaloi Lishma, with such intensity, this will never bring Lishma, and therefore, he says maybe in this case it's completely not okay, and he wants to punish him. But the Rebbe is still not happy with this answer. The Rebbe says this is not sufficient. Because even if we want to say that in this type of case, of this extreme Shaloi Lishma, maybe he shouldn't be learning Torah, we shouldn't be teaching him Torah, but still, how can you say that he needs to be punished for this, and with an Oynish Misa? That's still not clear. Says the Rebbe, the explanation is, when we speak about learning Torah for getting reward, generally there could be two types of ways. One is that one is learning Torah for the reward that Hashem is going to give for the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. To use the words of the Alter Rebbe, that a person is learning lekabel pras to get reward ba'olam haba, or even in olam hazeh, even in this world, getting richness and kavod of those that the expression is shel mas me'ilim ba. Because the pasuk says oirech yamim bimina b'smoila oisher v'chavod. So the Gemara explains that those that learn Torah in a way of smoil, left-handedly, so to speak. In other words, learning it for the sake of wealth and honor, etc. But we're speaking still, that's given min hashamayim. That's the words of the Alter Rebbe. So one way is learning Torah shaloi l'shma. You're doing it for the benefit and reward, but that's what is given for you from Hashem. That's one level. Another level is where the person wants to take for himself honor and greatness. In other words, he's learning Torah so that people will call him Rebbe, so that he'll become a Rosh Yeshiva, or that he'll be able to earn a living by teaching it, or being a dayan, etc. In other words, this is a benefit that the person is taking himself, by himself, from his limud Torah, or like making a career out of learning Torah. Now, this type of way of learning Torah shaloi l'shma is not only a problem in the l'shma aspect. In other words, it's not only a bigger shaloi l'shma, but here we have another issue of an isur of where it says that you're not allowed to make Torah a crown to become great by it. V'loi kardum, nor you're allowed to make it as an axe to cut with it. In other words, you're not allowed to actually use it to make a parnasa with it. It is only that even this kind of shaloi l'shma, we still say that if a person doesn't have yirah shamayim to be learning Torah completely l'shma, he will only do it in order to become great or to have his parnasa. Then even in this case we say it's still better that he should learn Torah, even shaloi l'shma, than completely not learning Torah and separating from Torah, because we say mitoich shaloi l'shma ba l'shma. So these are these two general ways. Before getting to our answer and how that applies to us, the Rebbe says with this we could also explain a certain diuk in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, where he enumerates a number of different ways in learning Torah shaloi l'shma. First, he speaks about a person that is learning to receive pras, to receive a reward, even in this world, of oisher, v'chavod, richness and honor, but that's given min hashamayim, that Hashem causes that he should be rich or get honor. Then, when he speaks about the reward that a person takes for himself, so the Alter Rebbe mentions kavod and gedula, that people should call him Rebbe, should become a Rosh Yeshiva. But the Alter Rebbe does not mention in all the things a person is taking for himself, the Alter Rebbe doesn't mention richness. Why not? The Rebbe says, based on what we just explained, we could say that the fact that there is any sort of heter to learn Torah, even as a kardum lachter to earn a parnasa. In other words, we said that's not the ideal way, but if there's no choice, that even that would be allowed. So even that's only if it's for the necessities, to have a parnasa. In other words, since a person has to feed his family, his wife and his family, so for that, we're still giving some sort of heter. But when it's coming to use words of Torah to become rich because of it, wealthy because of it, in other words, and that people should make you wealthy, not speaking about Hashem making you wealthy. People should make you wealthy for learning Torah. For this, in fact, there would be no heter whatsoever. So now we're going to go back to our story. Says the Rebbe, now we can understand Reb Abba's conduct. Reb Abba, when he made the announcement, who wants to become rich, should come and toil in Torah, what he was referring to was wealth that is given min hashamayim, that the Eibishter is going to make you rich. And he figured that that's exactly what Rabbi Yossi had in mind as well when he said, I want to learn Torah to become rich. Rabbi Abba thought that Rabbi Yossi understands that wealth means that one day Hashem will make you wealthy because of it. But when Rabbi Yossi later comes demanding from Rabbi Abba and saying, where's my money, where's my wealth? He's now revealing that what was my intention right from the beginning. He was hoping that Rabbi Abba is going to pay him, that Rabbi Abba is going to make him wealthy. And this is why Rabbi Abba wants to punish him. Because this is not just shaloi l'shma, but this is actually using what we call kisra shal Torah, the crown of Torah, in a way that it says that the punishment is nekam and oilam, he gets uprooted from the world. The Rebbe says now we'll also go back to one of the diyukim we mentioned earlier about why he's being referred to as a ravak, as a bachelor. Why was that relevant? The Rebbe says now it's geshmak, why the Zohar tells us that Rabbi Yossi at the point was a ravak. Because if he would be a family man, if he would be already a married person, so then at least he'll be able to be melamed chus, that he needs all this extra wealth to be able to fulfill his obligations of she'era, ksusa, giving his wife and family food and clothing, etc. And for this, again, there would be some sort of heter. But since he's a ravok, he's a bachelor, this shows that the ashirus that he wants, when he wants wealth, it's purely just for the sake of wealth. And for this, there's definitely no heter. And therefore, Rav Abba is completely negating this type of learning Shaloi Lishma to the extent that he wants to punish him. But, says the Rebbe, if that's the case, now the question becomes even bigger. What is the Baskol saying that in the future he will be a Gavra Rabbi, he's going to be a great person? Is that a heter to be able to now use Torah as a kardum lachterba, as an axe to chop with it? In other words, as a tool to become rich? Says the Rebbe, we're going to understand this by first examining a little bit more and understanding the words of Lo'olam Yasik Adam. A person should always be involved in Torah and mitzvahs, even Shaloi Lishma Shemitoich Shaloi Lishma Ba Lishma. And the Rebbe says the meaning of these words doesn't only mean that eventually he will learn Lishma, but rather it means that right now, in the Toich, there is already a Kavanah Lishma. In other words, the Mitoich Shaloi Lishma means inside the Shaloi Lishma, there's really a Lishma. What does this mean? The Rebbe explains, in the Toich, in the very inside of every single Yid, no matter what situation the Yid is in, there's always the rotzin, there's always the desire, the intent to fulfill Hashem's rotzin. As the famous psak din of the Rambam, that even a Yid, that Beis Din needs to force him to fulfill the psak din of Torah. In that particular case, the Rambam is speaking about a case where the halacha is that he needs to give a divorce. So even at the very time Beis Din is forcing him, in truth, the person always has the desire to do all of the mitzvahs. It is only that his Yetzer Hara is getting the better of him. The Yetzer Hara is forcing him to try to do the other way. And that's actually why it helps to force the Yid to do the mitzvah. And to, in this particular case, to give the get, even though a get usually needs to be given with one's full consent. Because this fact that he's being forced right now to give the get is only revealing his real deeper ratzon, that he always wants to do the ratzon of Hashem, the tzivui of Hashem. So that's number one. We say mitoich shaloi lishma ba lishma. The first thing what the Rebbe is saying is that really inside of a Yid there's always the ratzon. There's always the lishma. He really always wants to do the mitzvahs. Nevertheless, not in every single case do we count this inside of the person to say, therefore, since deep down inside he really wants to do the right thing, then it's okay. We don't always say that. The Rebbe says we find in Tosfos the following differentiation. That when we speak about learning Torah Shaloi Lishma, where that's permitted, so that's only in the case of, for example, like we said before, a person is learning Torah in order to get honor. And some of the other examples we gave before. But, says Tosfos, if a person is learning Torah, lekanter chaveirav, the only reason he's learning Torah is just to put other people down, just to be able to prove other people wrong and to put other people down with this Torah, then we say, noyach lo shaloi nivra, he shouldn't be learning Torah at all, it's better that he wasn't created. Even though you might argue over here as well, deep down inside he has the panimius, of course he wants to learn Torah. So what's the difference? Seemingly, even though lekanter chaveirav, to put his friends down, is much worse than just to get honor, but nevertheless, it's again, we're only dealing with his intention. He has a kavanah shaloi lishma. And the Rebbe says, the Rebbe adds another point. You can't compare this to a person that is einoi mekayim mashaloimid, a person that's not fulfilling what he's learning and not doing what he's learning that he's supposed to do, that according to some opinions, their itaka is not allowed to learn Torah, because in that case you would say there's really something missing regarding this Torah, since the whole purpose of Torah is all what you're going to do, tachlis chachma tshuva ma'asim tovim. Therefore, if a person is learning shaloi lasis not in order to do, then he's missing not only in the kavanah and his good intentions while he's learning, but he's really missing the whole purpose and point of learning itself. So in our case, why do we say, in Tosfos' case, why do we say that if a person is just having in mind that he's learning Torah in order to put other people, to knock other people, to put other people down, etc., why should this make such a major difference in his learning to the extent that we say Noach lo shel nivra would have been better, he wasn't even created? Says the Rebbe, the explanation is, the Rebbe is looking now in a deeper pshat of the words mitoich shaloi l'shma ba l'shma. What these words mean is not only that the inside of the Yid always has a kavanah l'shma, that deep down the Yid always wants to do the right thing. Rather, the Rebbe is saying, the toich, the inside of the very shaloi l'shma itself, is also l'shma. In other words, this person has a certain idea of why he's learning Torah, but really that idea itself, the inside of that idea itself, is really l'shma. And the Rebbe explains, the fact that Torah and mitzvahs bring with it different types of reward, whether it is physical reward, physical good, spiritual good. And we're not only speaking about the type of reward that the Eibishter gives, what's called over here in a way of segula. In other words, that you do this and you're promised you're going to get that, even if we can't see necessarily the connection between the two things. But even when we speak about the good that comes when a person does mitzvahs, and it comes as a natural result of the fulfillment of the mitzvahs. So for example, in our case, the person is being honored because of his wisdom. He's a Rosh Yeshiva, etc. Even these types of things are not a disturbance to serving Avodas Hashem L'Shma. Furthermore, the Rebbe says, by a person that's a true Oved Hashem L'Shma, this reward itself, becomes part of his Avodas Hashem. How so? Because the real idea of L'Shma means that when a person is learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, he's completely not thinking about himself and his own benefit. All he's doing and all he cares about is only about Hashem. And similarly over here, when it comes to the reward for Torah and mitzvahs, when a person like this is getting richness and is getting honor, for example, so he's not feeling that he is the one that's becoming a more important person or becoming greater. He is the one that got richness and honor. But rather, he sees it as the kavod shamayim, Hashem's honor is being increased in the world. Because everyone sees that a Yid that learns Torah and does mitzvahs, gets wealth, gets honor, etc. The Rebbe says this is similar to what says regarding Avraham Avinu. The pasuk says, "Va'agad lo shmecha," Hashem says, "I'm going to make your name great." Famous question, is Avraham Avinu looking for greatness? Avraham Avinu is completely bottled. He's the one that says, "Va'anoichi," I'm not only dust and ashes. And one of the explanation is that exactly that's the point. Since Avraham Avinu is so bottled, he so much doesn't take up any space in his own eyes at all. So when we speak about Va'agad lo shmecha, I'm going to make your name great, it's not, he doesn't see it as his name, it's the name of the one who created him. In other words, any honor that Avraham Avinu is going to get is about Shem Shamayim. So when Avraham Avinu's name becomes great in the world, it's not about his greatness, it's about making Hashem's name great in the world. So getting back now to the point of mitoich shaloi l'shma ba l'shma, that the very inside of the loy l'shma itself is l'shma. What does this mean? When a Yid feels that he wants to have honor and richness and the like, now that's what he consciously really feels, and that's what he thinks he wants. But that itself is only as a result of the guf, as a result of the body. But the real reason he wants it, there's a toich, there's an inside to this shaloi l'shma. There's the desire of the neshama. The neshama wants these things. Why does the neshama want these things? Because all of these matters of schar is that this should add an increase in the kavod HaTorah and in the kavod shamayim, as just explained before, that through this people will see clearly that through Torah and mitzvahs a person is benched with all sorts of good. This idea of saying that on the one hand you think you want the richness and honor, but there's a deeper reason why you really want it because of your neshama, the Rebbe says this is famous, this is similar to a Pirush of the Baal Shem Tov. On the pasuk, Re'evim gam tzmeim, people are hungry and thirsty, nafsham bahem tisatov. The Baal Shem Tov explained this pasuk as saying, why is a guf, why is a Yiddish guf hungry and thirsty to food and drink? It's because the nefesh, your neshama wants to elevate the godly sparks, the holy sparks that are inside that food and drink. And the same thing is what the Rebbe is saying over here, that the reason the person wants the richness and honor is really lishma. But, says the Rebbe, this type of mitoich shaloi lishma ba lishma could only apply in the type of case, in the type of motive that one has, where you could somehow possibly say that there should be a toich, there should be some inner meaning in this shaloi lishma that can be lishma, like honor and richness, as we just said. But what about a person that's just learning lekanter? He's just learning just to put other people down. Which this is something completely negative, has nothing positive about it at all. In this case, you can't come along and say that the toich, the inner part of that loy lishma, is lishma. And that's why it's so much worse. Says the Rebbe, now we can understand what the Baskel meant by saying that Rabbi Yossi is going to be a Gavra Rabbah. And the Rebbe explained, before we said that richness seemingly would be completely a no-no to learn Torah for that. So the Rebbe says, even though there is that cloud that you're not allowed to use Torah to become rich, we said there might be a head to have parnasa, to feed your family or something like that, but not to become rich. However, says the Rebbe, we know there's a halacha that in a case of someone that rabim tzrichim loy, that many people need him, you have a person she'ein b'medina, and there's no one greater than this person in the country in Chachma. There's a concept that the tzibur has an obligation to give him parnasa b'chavod, and even to make him rich, based on the idea of gadleu mishel echad, you should make him greater than everybody else, and so to every gadol adoyer. In other words, there's a concept that if someone is the gadol adoyer, the leader, a great Talmid Chacham, there's a concept that we need to give him richness. And that's what this Baskel was coming to say. This Baskel was coming to reveal that Rabbi Yossi, although seemingly he wanted ashirus, just to become rich, as a reward for his learning. But, says the Baskel, the reason he really wants it is because he already currently has the potential, and it's going to come out eventually, that Gavra Rabba Lehevi, he's going to be a very, very great person. And therefore there's the obligation that we need to make him rich and greater than everybody else. And therefore, although it's true that in his current situation he wants the richness just for his own benefit, but within this shaloi lishma, there's the toich, mitoich shaloi lishma, ba lishma, there's the real reason of why he wants this richness is because his neshama is trying to reach to this level of this Gavra Rabbah, become such a great person, greater than everybody else, and therefore he should become rich. And therefore, in this type of case, he is allowed to learn Torah for the Ashiris, because as a result of his tremendous koiches that he has, and he's going to become this Gadol Hadoir, and therefore there's the mitzvah to make him rich. Says the Rebbe, now we can understand why eventually and ultimately Rabbi Yossi gives back this cup of Paz, and also the reason why he's called Rabbi Yossi ben Pazi. The fact that the tzibur needs to give the Gadol Hador Parnas and to make him rich, obviously doesn't cause by this Gadol Hador Chas v'Shalom any sort of feeling of gaiva and the like. On the contrary, because he's a true Gadol Hador, he has the real bittul to Hashem. Davke, this is the reason why he has the ability to be mevarer, to elevate even something like Ashirus, like the richness. Because for someone like him, even the Ashirus itself, again, is not about himself. It's more about Kavod Shemayim. This increases the honor of Hashem, as said before. Says the Rebbe, so now we have the explanation in the above mentioned story. Where Rabbi Yossi gives back this kais of Paz, he does not mean to take away the schus of the rich person in the Torah that he had already learned in his honor. Obviously, as we said, you can't do that. Once it was done, it was done. He has that schus. Rabbi Yossi is trying to bring out to what extent the learning of Torah Lishma has to be. So that's on the one hand, he's giving back the kais of Paz. But the Rebbe says we're calling him Ben Pazi. We're calling him in Pazi Limal Yusa in a positive way. This name is coming to bring out in addition to the fact, number one, that Pazi means it's my Paz. Once it was mine already, I gave it back, which is one thing. But it's also coming to bring out the great Maila of Rabbi Yossi, that he's a Gavra Rabbah, which is the Baskel called him a Gavra Rabbah. What does the word Gavra Rabbah mean? We translate it as a big person, a great person. But Gavra is also from the word Gibor. What it's bringing out is a regular Gavra, even from the word Gibor, would not have the ability to be able to deal with and transform Paz, Ashirus, to transform it into a Lishma. But Rabbi Yossi, being a Gavra Rabbah, he is able to be Ben Pazi. The word Ben Pazi, the Rebbe says, like we have the expression Ben Choyden. In other words, it becomes completely who he is. He's the owner of this title, meaning he has the ability to be able to take the Paz. He's such a master of the Paz that he could completely transform all of richness to be a thing of Lishma. The Rebbe now goes back to Avraham Avinu, says the Rebbe. Similarly, we could say regarding the fact that Hashem says to Avraham, Schorcha harbe miyoid, you have such great reward coming to you. Even though we said Avraham Avinu is a oived me'av, he's serving Hashem just out of love, says the Rebbe, on the contrary, that's exactly the point. Specifically because Avraham Avinu was oived me'av in the greatest way. So even the reward of avodah for him is not a reward for itself, it's for the avodah of Hashem. And on the contrary, Dafka, with the fact that Hashem says, Schorcha harbe miyoid, you have great reward, that really brings out the greatness of Avraham Avinu. That he's so bottled, he's so much not of a metzius in his own eyes, so that even his reward in the way of harbe miyoid is totally not in contradiction by him to serving Hashem lishma. And not only that, but it's a part of his avodah. Because the greatness of the schar of his avodah by him, again, is not about his own greatness, but it's all bringing out the greatness of Hashem.